everybody, I'm Cece and this is Thane. He's our little mascot here at Desert Dragon Salvation. He's got a bit of a black beard going on because he saw one of our other bearded dragons. He got kind of mad. So this video is our second one, and it's going to start talking about why rescues like ours are so important and why they even exist in the first place. So he's about a year old. He's average size for a dragon. They do get bigger than this, so he's got a little bit more growing to do. Typically a dragon this size, you're going to want to hold them in, the bare minimum tank for him is a 40-gallon tank. The best size is probably a 75 to 120 gallon. That's going to run you probably $500 to $800. Depending on how you want to do it. That's for an already made tank. This little guy just tried eating my hair. This is Bosk. He's one of our rescues. We got him about 2.5 weeks ago. Got a lot of spunk to him. He's very adventurous. So, as I was saying, when you're housing these little guys, the 40-gallon is really just the bare minimum. This guy right here, he's 18 months old. Now that's older than this guy, and you can definitely tell the difference. So this guy, I think he's ready for his dinner already. So this little guy is 18 months old, and he was housed in likely a 10-gallon tank. So he does have some stunted growth going on, as well as he was very, very malnourished. You can tell from the size of his tail back there. It's very tiny. So he's got some growing to do in terms of just fattening himself up a bit. But again, you just really want to watch what tank size you're getting for these guys. You know, if you want to cut down the cost, I'll be talking in the next video about how you can do that by making your own enclosure, which is what I did here at the Salvation. And it cut it down to, I think, less than $100 to build the actual enclosure. So that was fairly impressive, actually. So because his owners didn't know how to take care of him, and the simple fact that he can eat probably anywhere from 20 to 30 crickets a day. In dubias, it's probably 3 to 10 dubia roaches a day. That can get really expensive if you don't start breeding your own. So his last owner probably didn't really understand how much they can really eat and the size tank that he really needed. So he came to stay with us for a little bit until he finds his forever home. Again, he's a lot smaller than Thane here because just of the sheer care that was given. Alright, next up, this little guy down here. His name is Jinx. He's also 18 months old. He's pretty much got the same things going on as Bosk. He has stunted growth, metabolic bone disease. He's very, very thin. He's a lot thinner than Bosk. Right now he's being fed on just baby food, which is why there's so much mess around his tank right now. So in that 40-gallon tank that I was talking about, you can only house one dragon to that size tank. If you're getting something like a 75 to a 120-gallon, you can hold 2 or 3 female-only bearded dragons. You never ever want to house 2 males together. The reason being is this. This was likely done by either a tank mate or maybe his siblings when he was younger. When they fight, they typically go for the tail or the limbs, so it's not uncommon for bearded dragons to be missing toes, a whole tail like he is, maybe even whole arms or legs. It's really sad when we see one of those guys. So you really only want to keep them one dragon per tank. Again, you know, if you're going to breed your dragons, or if you find yourself, you know, accidentally having bred your dragons, this again is what can happen. Baby bearded dragons, they eat anywhere from 30 to 60 crickets a day per dragon. And they lay a lot of eggs. So you're really going to want to make sure you know how you're going to feed them and house them. If they get a little too riled up, if they're too close together, if they don't get enough food, they start just eating each other. That's also what could have happened to this little guy. We're not entirely sure. So right now, he's on baby food only, and this is because his system simply cannot handle crickets or dubia roaches at this time. So this is really sad, but this is what happens when people don't necessarily understand, you know, what it takes to house these guys. It isn't cheap unless you're smart about it. Another thing that happens with these guys is a lot of dragons don't know to drink from their water bowls. Now you see in all three of my tanks here, I do have water bowls. This one's not as pretty. But they don't generally know to drink from their water bowl. This is pretty common. A lot of dragons don't realize where to get water from, excuse me. Thane here does, but it took a very long time for him to realize that that's where he got water from. So, where they get water is 2 to 3 times a week typically. You're going to want to give them a bath. This is just soaking them in the water for 15 to 30 minutes as they absorb the water through their body. I'll be talking a little bit more about how they do that in another video. But when you do get a dragon, if you have the room in the enclosure for a water bowl, I think it's a good idea to try and see if they know how to drink water. He does, but again, he still does have baths. So that's another thing that is, you know, something that you're just going to have to do. Another thing that costs money is this over here. This is a heat lamp. It's a 75 watt. Now, these on the outside, these sockets, they cost about $6 to $10 depending where you are. The light bulb inside only cost a couple dollars. I get mine from Walmart. They're just regular light bulbs. You're going to have to play around with the wattage. Mine is 75 watts right now, and it's a perfect temperature for his basking. Over here is his UV lighting. So these guys can cost a lot of money. Mine again was from Walmart. It still cost me $10. But if you want to get something like a Repti Sun, that's going to cost $10 to $50 upwards. They need this, and it has to be changed every 6 months. Little boss here is following my finger around everywhere I go. He did get salad today in the form of veggie baby food. He's just a little piggy. So it's almost dinner time for him anyway, but he'll have to wait a little bit. So each dragon gets sun, and each dragon gets a basking spot with the same lighting setup. You could do this in multiple ways. This is the best way I found. And then they also get a cooler side of the tank. So this side, the UV lighting also reaches this side because you want it to reach your entire tank. But this side is just a little bit darker just so that it's a little bit of a cooler side. The basking spots are going to be around $100 or 100 degrees for a perfect spot. And this is what you're going to want to get. So it's a digital temperature gauge. I got mine at Walmart. I think it was $7 or so. And it reads all of them. All of their tanks. It'll tell me every temperature. Over here, I'll put it over here for a little bit and it'll say, you know, what the basking spot is. I think his is 109. 86 for the rest of the tank is perfect. At night, you can turn all the lights off, and if it gets down to 75, that's perfect. Even less, it can get down to 65 before you're going to need a nighttime heat lamp. So here in Arizona, it really doesn't get that cold at night, especially indoors. So I don't usually need a nighttime heat lamp, but if it gets cold where you are, that's definitely something to think about. So as I was saying, these guys have salad in the morning. These guys right now are just eating baby food, but Thane does have salad on his own, and I'll talk about that in another video, what kind of salad he gets. Guess he's hungrier today than he usually is. So that's the 3 dragons. Just a little bit about their care and why we exist. So things like this little guy here are taken care of until they find a good forever home. So yeah, follow us on our journey. I'll be probably posting videos every week about how they're doing and how much weight they're gaining. And right now I'll be posting every day about different little things just to get to know us. Tomorrow's video is going to be about how I made their enclosure. Got my finger in the way a little bit there. Sorry about that. Alright, so we'll see you guys tomorrow.